Feel about your day today?
It was
About
good.
recruiting.
I think it's a little overblown. I mean, we signed a predominant amount of our class in December, but maybe some of you guys didn't care about the December signing period, so we can recap that at the same time we do this. But I mean, it was good. We got quality players at all positions. We wanted to get bigger. We feel like we've done that. We got 16 guys over 6'4", so we got a little bit of size in this group, and that's an important thing for us moving forward. So we're excited. A bunch of quality guys that should be able to add to us. And we'll see what we got.
Everybody likes to talk about the quarterback position.
Mhm.
You get a quarterback out of Vegas, your thoughts and
Yeah.
what he's going to bring to you.
Yeah, real dynamic young player. He can beat you with his arm and his leg. Smart, a real tough competitor. We were excited. He had been committed for a while when we got here, and he was a priority to make sure that we kept him committed. Quality young man, so excited about Dorian and what he can bring.
Because of the early signing, how did that change for you, not going into as many homes or having a chance to go into more homes later?
It didn't. I mean, whoever didn't sign was available after the December date, so you just dealt with what you dealt with. So, a lot of the recruiting is relationships, obviously getting in here late. You maybe didn't have a chance at some guys, but those are the rules, and so we follow them. So.
Were there a couple positions that you thought were particularly of need that you were able to
No,
fill?
we were pretty balanced. If you looked at what we did, we were balanced all across the board at everything. So we needed depth and help at every position. So, there's 5 wideouts and 4 linebackers, 5 DBs, 4D linemen, 4 O linemen, pretty across the board, 2 running backs, a quarterback. We were pretty spread out in terms of what we took.
Coach, go back to Oregon. Did you feel you had to have a 5-star athlete? And people make so much of who has the most 4 stars and 5 stars, or is it more about finding athletes that fit your system and getting kids that are hungry?
No, we're not concerned with stars, never have been, so I don't think that's we're not driven by that. There's a lot of kids that are really good players. I know Kiko Alonso, who got drafted in the 2nd round out of Los Gatos, when we were at Oregon, wasn't a highly recruited player. Marcus Mariota was not a highly recruited player. Johnny Manziel was not a highly recruited player. We actually had both of them committed. They both won the Heisman Trophy, and they were both 3-star recruits. So I don't think I've never really been a big, people are good, but I don't really care about the star system. We don't take a kid because of the stars. We take a kid because what he does athletically and academically fits it where we are. So.
Can you expand on that? Is that what you're looking for, as much academics or
Well,
athletically?
yeah, it has to be obviously here. There's a lot of kids that they're just not going to get into school, so you're wasting their time and your time if you're spending time recruiting them if they're not going to get in. So I think there's an academic evaluation that takes place, there's a character evaluation that takes place, and then we turn the film on or go see the kid in person or have them in camp where we can look at them athletically. But if they don't pass the first 2 tests, then we're not going to recruit the kid.
Coach, you mentioned the number of players you have signed that are 6'4" or taller. Is that like a physical checkbox that you want to check before you look at the film?
Yeah,
look at the
there's
academics?
certain size requirements that we're looking for, and we were successful at Oregon with that, recruiting kids like Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, taller, longer players, Deion Jordan, all those guys. They grow into their framework, but big people beat up little people, so we're looking for big people.
Is there kind of a theory to recruit to measurables and then you get them in the program to see how their bodies develop and then plug them in?
It's easier to be successful when you follow the measurables than when you take a bunch of underachievers and you have a 5'8" nose guard backed up by a 5'7" linebacker backed up by a 5'6" defensive back, and you're probably going to get run over.
Could this list that was distributed grow, or are there more guys that could come on board?
I don't know exactly what you guys got, but I think
Okay.
we're pretty set. Or there may be one more. I don't know what you guys got distributed. So.
Tell us a little bit about the recruit from Wisconsin, the offensive lineman, and how that recruitment went.
John Gaines?
Yes.
Yeah, real good. Another, had a couple Big Ten schools looking at him, had a couple Ivy League schools looking at him because he's a very good student. Watched him on film, obviously did an academic evaluation. He was a great student. And then when you talk to people as president of his class, is everything kind of off the charts from a character standpoint. And then you put the tape on, he's a really good football player. So he kind of checked all the boxes for us.
When you were talking to him, was he going to go to Princeton? Was that his?
I think he had a couple of options in the Ivy Leagues, along with a couple options in the Big Ten. So fortunately for us, he picked us.
In your evaluation process, can you speak to the home? When you go into someone's home, they've clearly checked the other boxes by the time you get there. What are you looking for?
Well, the home is probably already done. You're in the marketing part, and you're trying to sell your school at that point in time. There's not very many times that you go into a home visit and say, hey, I don't want this kid anymore. So by the time you get to the home visit part of it, that's usually the last component. You're trying to recruit the kid and bring him on. You're not still making evaluations at that point in time.
So do you look for something in terms of, like, there's some kids that need a hug, some kids need to be yelled at to be inspired.
Do you need a hug?
Well, some days I do, yes.
Okay.
But
Are we
I-
talking about
I-
you or recruits?
No, I'm telling, well, it was actually Pete Carroll who said that he
Right.
said some days when to motivate a kid, you can't yell at him. You have to do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, that's in general, but you're probably not gonna figure that out in a home visit. You know,
Okay.
I think it's just a different setting. You know, I think it's, you know, they're kind of putting on their best show and you're putting on your best show, but I don't think there's really a lot of deep inner hold hands and sing kumbaya when you're on a home visit, but maybe we should try that. It'll help us get some guys, so.
Coach, obviously this is part of the process, but are you glad this is over now and you guys get on the field here? for
No,
next
I
week?
mean, the schedule is the schedule, and it's been the same all the time. So the first week of February has always been the signing date. So, you know, we're creatures of habit as coaches, so you kind of follow along exactly what you do. Then after the signing date, you start to finish up your winter program and then get ready for spring ball. We'll be out in the field in in March, so we're excited about that aspect of it. But I've never been one like I wish this was going to happen or that was going to happen. Everything is very cyclical in what we do, so it's the same schedule. So.
How's your last couple months been here since you arrived on campus?
It's been great. You look at the weather outside, it's a pretty good place to be, so.
That's true.
There was a guy who got on kind of late, who committed today, Michael Ezeki.
Yeah, we didn't get on him late.
Well, okay.
We've been recruiting him for a long time.
Right,
so.
that he committed today.
Yeah, I
Talk
mean,
about
that's
like
just
what
the
kind of player
process.
he is and what kind of matchup.
Big matchup problem for people, I think, as a wide receiver. You know, I've always had success with big receivers. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Matthews, who played for me when I was in Philadelphia. So I think him, along with Brian Addison and Chase Cota, we got 3 guys over 6'3", 2 guys over 6'5". So I think that matchup against smaller DBs is something that we'll try to exploit using all 3 of those guys in that regard.
Coach, when you took over, there's obviously a lot of turnover with the recruits who previously committed to Coach Mora. Was that just doing due diligence, or were you looking for
No.
different qualities in the players?
No, I mean, we've got to recruit to what we want to build here at UCLA. That's one thing. And I also think the commitment part's way overblown. I think if a kid commits and has taken other visits, then he's just making reservations for dinner. He's not committed to you. So, I mean, I think maybe some young guys maybe have to figure out what the word commitment means. So when a kid says he's committed and visiting 5 other schools, well, then he's not committed. So, I think there's way too much stock in, you know, that this school has 18 commits in September. Well, how many of those guys are actually committed, shut down recruiting and not going anywhere else? Then only 4, so then they have 4 commitments. So I think way too much is made over that early commitment part, just because they're not committed if they're visiting other schools and talking to other schools. So.
Are you anticipating that the junior college guys might be able to come in and be a little bit more ready to play? Jabari Anderson.
I hope
Tyler
they're all
Smith.
ready to play. I mean, that's kind of the goal. So I hope everybody we signed is ready to play the day they get here, because that's what we want them to do. And if we did a good job recruiting, then they are ready to play. So I don't put more stock in the JC kids than I do the high school kids. And we told them all that you better all come in here on day 1 and prepare to play, because that's why you came here. So we didn't plan to redshirt any of them. So if you ask me who do we plan on playing next year, I hope they all play next year. So that's kind of what our game plan is.
What was the biggest thing that you had to readjust to, you know, being in the NFL for a few years and coming back to the college game, whether it's recruiting, whether it's building a staff at this level?
I don't think there was any one big thing that stood out. I mean, it's the only thing that was a little different is there was a signing date in December, but that came in past. Like some of you guys missed a signing date in December too. So, but the schedule is the schedule. It was usually the same schedule that we kept when I was at Oregon. You know, you have a bowl prep. You got recruiting weekends. There's a big break from December 15th to about January 15th, and then you crank it back up again till this day. So I think it's pretty much has been pretty straightforward, to be
Was
honest.
it kind of muscle memory for you getting back into the?
Brain memory, not muscle memory. We're not lifting anything. So
Is there a designated recruiting coordinator on the staff?
no, we have a director of player personnel, Jeff Martson, who handles all of that stuff, and then everybody has their own recruiting area, and then we kind of morph into recruiting by positions. But there's nobody. Well, our off-field people handle all that stuff.
At defensive back, it looks like you went for height, size, length.
Yeah, we went at height, size, length at every position. So if you look at the numbers and what we're looking for, I think it's a taller, longer game. And if you're taller and longer at every position, it's going to be benefit. The same thing we did at wide out, the same thing we did at DB, linebacker, defensive line. You know, that's kind of what we're looking for.
What do you see from Martell Irby, the running back?
Yeah, very tough, hard-nosed, physical guy. You know, he's little bit shorter, but he's 200 pounds, over 200 pounds. He's a physical player. You know, you look at his highlight tape, he kind of jumps off the screen as a defensive player and how physical he can be. But he can make cuts at full speed. He catches the ball really well. He played some quarterback. He's got some versatility. He's also just a unique kid. You know, he's got a 3.96 grade point average, plays 3 instruments, goes to the School of Performing Arts, and then goes over to Morse to play. So, real neat kid. Real excited to have him here.
We have time for just a couple more.
How many are you expecting to have for spring training or spring practice?
I think a couple. I think maybe those 3 JCs and maybe one other high school kid are going to enroll for. I'm not positive on that for April, but Kyle Phillips, who we signed in December, is here and enrolled in January, and then we're hoping that the JC kids and I think one more high school kid will be here for the April quarter system. So.
Chip, the new transfer proposal to allow kids to be able to transfer immediately and play. What are your thoughts on that?
Just tell me what the rules are and we'll follow them, and then besides that, they don't really talk to us anyway, so.
Is there a concern though with coaches that it could turn into a free agency?
There's a concern about a lot of rules, but if we don't have a say in them, then I don't really care, to be honest with you. If I have a say, then I'll weigh in on it, but we don't really have a say, so.
Did you think the late start in starting recruiting had any impacts on this class, or are you happy and feel like
Yeah,
it's?
I mean, it had an impact just because we didn't, we weren't out I got here after Thanksgiving, so there was obviously kids that signed early that you never really had a chance to get involved in, but that's just the nature of taking over. Every coach, I would say, probably said the same thing. If you start early, it's better if you've had time to be in, a year recruiting a kid as opposed to 3 days recruiting a kid. So, but it's just can't change anything about that. So we just move forward and just keep trying to add quality guys to the class.
Did you have to go after more under the radar guys because of that, do you think?
No, I mean, I don't think we pay attention to the radar, so we're going for guys that fit for what we're doing and what we want academically and athletically, and whether they have a lot of stars or have no stars, that's not a big concern to us, so.
Guys good?